Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today, we've got another Gun Gripe episode for you. Now, this is going to be a touchy subject, but a lot of folks have asked us to talk about it. So we definitely want to try to get into this and have a chat about Mr. Floyd and the whole situation that went on in Minneapolis, which is very, very horrible. And, of course, we want to discuss it a little bit. It's the whole issue with the police and police brutality and police overstepping their authority is definitely not something that is unknown, right? I mean, lots of folks have been complaining about the police overstepping authority and overstepping their boundaries. And it's not just things like Mr. Floyd's death. It's many other things, such as the social distancing measures. Some states and municipalities have had some really severe stay-at-home orders. They've threatened businesses with closures and in some cases actually arrested business owners for reopening. So this is a far wide-reaching thing that goes beyond that one incident, although I feel like that incident really is like a spark that lit a fire, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit. Before we get too far into this video, I do want to mention, guys, also go and check out the Jump app and make sure you're following us over there on the Caliber Crew. It's a new social media platform that we've become a member of, and I'm really liking it. No censorship, no bullcrap. Great place for people to share great ideas, get together, talk about guns. A real kind of safe place for people to get together and get with like-minded people. So check it out. We're a part of the Caliber Crew on the Jump app. It's free to download. Go make an account. Real easy. Check it out. We'll see you over there on the Jump app. So many people obviously disagree with what happened. I mean, all of us were appalled when we heard of Mr. Floyd's passing because it paints a lot of very difficult pictures, right, when something like that happens. For one, it re-solidifies the things that we feel like we already know about the police, right? And the feelings that people already have, these deep-rooted feelings about the police and the violence they're willing to commit against people, of course, become reaffirmed when these things happen, right? And of course, no one in a million years here especially thinks that Mr. Floyd deserved to die for being accused of passing a fake $20 bill. Okay, I don't care who you are. Nobody deserves to die over that. And it's tragic. And I hope that, beyond all of this, the scope of everything that's going on, I hope that Mr. Floyd's family finds peace and justice. And nobody wants that more than us. It's a dual-pronged type of thing, and it's very scary for a lot of us. And, of course, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that there's been a lot of rioting and looting occurring all around the country, not just in Minnesota and in Minneapolis, but all over the country.
New York to L.A. and everywhere in between. I mean, we've got it right on our back door in Atlanta right now, and the most recent calls were from governors in the various states where this kind of craziness is occurring. They're calling in the National Guard. The president just recently called for the mobilization of the National Guard on a federal level, and in addition to some military being activated potentially, to deal with the threat of this violence. And the problem is, like, the problem that I have with this is, protest, yes, but then you have peaceful protesters being blamed for the actions of Antifa and other organizations that are just using this crisis here as just an opportunistic moment to take advantage of a economy that's down. People who are down on their luck. Folks are out of work. I mean, we've got the highest unemployment that we've had in decades. Because of this coronavirus bullcrap, that's been going on. It's just a giant lie, I mean, in the big scheme of things. But when you look at what's going on with the riots and looting and stuff, I mean, looting is bad, okay? Looting is a criminal activity. It is not your place to, steal from someone else whose livelihood could depend on that retail store or that eatery or whatever the case is. I mean, you've got people burning down churches. You've got people burning down libraries. Places where we store knowledge. I mean, you look at the, part of the Library of Congress that got burned down or at least set on fire in Washington, D.C. Several monuments and such being vandalized up in Washington. People protesting right in front of the White House, burning flags, like the usual crap. But, there's been stories of people being bussed in from out of state, to these riots that are going on. And, you see it all over the media. And information travels so fast these days, it's almost overwhelming how much information we get fed. And I think it's almost information overload. But you see people like in LA, they're from Indianapolis. And like, well, how'd you get here? Well, we got on a bus. So to think that this whole situation isn't being manipulated is a farce. You're ignorant if you think this whole situation isn't being manipulated to further divide, the races in the United States. We are a giant melting pot, and all it takes is a spark like this to get everybody riled up. But whether or not, it was a black man or a white man or a brown man or a yellow man who was pinned down by that officer, and murdered there on the street, I think that we would be having the same talk right now, depending on what was going on. But it's just a sad state of affairs. I don't know. I think back like to the Rodney King, riots in the early '90s. We didn't have the internet. You had word of mouth. You had television cameras. And people found out about what happened with the 4 officers being acquitted, after the beating of Rodney King. And, that's really what sparked the riots in L.A. And, we don't really have that with this situation. It's not really comparable because, the cop is in jail. He's actually been moved to a maximum security prison right now. Just because of all the threats against him and everything like that. But, justice is potentially being served. Now, a reason to cause this sort of ruckus is if that officer is acquitted of third-degree murder, which would be a slap in the face to the justice system in this country, which, is questionable at best, but, it's unwarranted. The violence and the looting and everything is very much unwarranted. The peaceful protests, and you got sheriffs all across the country that are walking with protesters. They're protesting police brutality as well because they don't want to be painted in a bad light, just by some bad apples. It's just like gun owners. We don't want to be painted in a bad light by some irresponsible gun owners out there, or the criminals that use guns. But the government, they just look at us all in the same in the same bowl and say, okay, well, guns are bad because one person used a gun in a crime. Okay, well, is a particular group of people bad because there are a few bad apples that are going around lighting stuff on fire and stealing and looting and everything? I don't know. I see people of all colors doing that kind of stuff.
Of course.
Bad people in every race group. It's just stupid people out there. And I don't know, man. It's a tough topic.
It is. It's very difficult to talk about. The thing about it as well is that I do believe that there are some players in this particular situation that are orchestrating the rioting and the looting. You look at these little mini construction sites that were set up with pallets of bricks on them, and they disguised it to look like it was part of a construction project, and they placed these pallets of bricks in strategic locations along the riot route so that they could move the things out of the way, take the strapping off, and now they got bricks to throw through windows and vandalize and things. Someone had to plan that.
So they're basically arming the rioters.
Yes, someone had to plan that. Someone orchestrated that. That wasn't just a by chance thing. Those pallets of bricks weren't just there by mistake. And the part of it, too, is that someone had to pay for it. Someone's got to invoice for those bricks. Somebody's got to invoice for the rental truck to move the bricks to those locations, and those investigations are going to come out. And those
China,
right? But the bottom line is there are people that are trying to take advantage of a tragedy, and as they say, they'll never let a tragedy go to waste, and that is simply occurring, and it's very tragic and unfortunate. And then you look at the situation where there are people that are trying to peacefully protest and let their thoughts be known, and those people are being given a very bad outlook because of all the people looting and rioting and doing all these horrible things. So I'm not going to pretend to know all the answers. I certainly don't, and I certainly am not going to pretend to know where a lot of you are coming from in terms of how you feel. I'm not a minority. I'm not an African American, and it's very difficult sometimes for a guy like me, a guy that looks like me, to tell you guys that might be watching the channel that might be African American, to, hey, go arm yourself. Protect your communities. You know, when I make these videos and I say, yeah, we need to protect ourselves, well, guess what? We means you too. If you're Asian and you're watching this video, if you're black and you're watching this video, you're white and you're watching this video, it doesn't matter. We is we, right? We're all here together. We're all consuming this content. You're here for some reason. Something brought you here, right? You're not here just to lick my pretty face, all right? I know that. We all have to have some form of common denominator that brings us together. And I've been saying for years that firearms ownership transcends all boundaries that might separate us as people in this country. Now, yeah, every family is going to have arguments, right? You know, some of the worst arguments you're ever going to have with your family might be at Christmas dinner or at the Thanksgiving dinner table or at a family reunion, right? There's going to be those couple of family members that clash and get into it. But you're still family at the end of the day. We don't all have to sing Kumbaya, but I think it's safe to say we should all protect each other. And when you see these injustices occurring, you should step in and do something about it. No one is more angry about Mr. Floyd passing away than I am, because it paints law enforcement with a bad picture and it reaffirms the negative things that we think about law enforcement, which is certainly a step in the wrong direction. Law enforcement, now granted, some of them are doing a wonderful job of reaching out to their communities, like the sheriff that decided to walk along with the protesters up there. I forget which state that was in. Was that in Michigan?
I can't recall.
I think it was in Michigan or somewhere. But
there's been so much lately, I can't remember.
There's so much going on, guys. There's so much information coming in very rapidly. But yeah, one law enforcement officer I noticed, one of the protesters was really upset, and he was a younger kid. And, this cop was like, hey, it's going to be better. And, kind of tap on the shoulder, show a little support. I mean, those are those little those mini moments of humanity that we got to look for in this whole fray, right? The bad actors are certainly giving this situation a very negative context. And of course, there's been millions of dollars in damage, not to mention some loss of human life, injuries. There's a situation where a fire broke out. And of course, the firemen are going to come in and do their job and put the fire out. And then they got attacked by looters and rioters because they were trying to put the fire out. And these guys had bricks thrown at them. They had to wear body armor just to go and try to put this fire out. So they're attacking first responders. Nobody's safe. And in many municipalities, the police have been told to somewhat stand down. I mean, they're trying to kind of control the situation a bit. But for the most part, yeah, the law enforcement chiefs and the mayors of these towns and stuff, mayors of these cities, like the mayor up here in Atlanta, she's telling law enforcement, please, for the love of God, don't beat anybody up, or don't shoot anybody, or don't do this, or don't do that, because they're so worried about this situation getting stoked into a huge fire that's going to be even worse, a literal fire, that it's almost what are you supposed to do? Well, then President Trump's address from the Rose Garden just last night, it was pretty powerful. He did not accept any comments or any questions from the media. He basically made a statement and said, hey, if these states' governors are not going to deal with the situation, then we're going to step in and we're going to deal with the situation. So the states' governors have the ability to call in the National Guard of the state to deal with certain situations. So here in Georgia, Brian Kemp, our governor, called in 3,000 troops to help kind of quell the situation. Now, I have a little bit of a varying opinion about this whole thing. Excuse me. But the issue is that on one end, I'm not a statist, okay? I don't look at this situation as, oh, well, the government should put their boot down on the person's neck, like literally happened. That's what is so bad about this. Mm-hmm. Not only did Mr. Floyd pass away, but, I mean, when you literally talk about the boot of tyranny on your neck, it literally was. Well, the knee of tyranny, but still, the boot of tyranny. And that's what is so scary about this situation, is how far are we going to allow these things to occur? How much are we going to be able to sit back and just say, how many more Duncan Lemps do we have to deal with? How many more George Floyds do we have to deal with before people get sick and tired of it? So I understand people are emotional and they're mad and they're angry. And I'm definitely not a statist in the degree that I think, should the guard be marching through the streets and making people go into their homes? I mean, like the one situation up in Washington where you saw the video of the lady just out on her front porch filming the guard troops walking down the street, and they're yelling at everybody getting their house, and then they're getting shot at with rubber bullets.
That wasn't guard. That was cops, wasn't it?
Or it was cops or guard or whoever. They had a Humvee, but no matter who it was, I mean, if you're on your property and filming law enforcement, should you get a rubber bullet shot at you? It's just, how far down that rabbit hole are we going to let them go, and how much of that are we going to accept? That's the scary part about it. Is, I understand that there's got to be some law and order, and I do not agree at all with these businesses being looted and robbed. That's just a terrible way to treat your fellow citizens. I mean, so, all right, this happened, and you're going to get really angry, and you're going to go out and loot and rob or whatever. But you're going to go and loot and rob and burn down the businesses of your fellow minorities, right? Like, there's black businesses being burned down. There's this one video, dude, it gave me goosebumps when I watched it on Facebook, and I wish I had the link to the video. I'd share it with you, but there was this one black gentleman walks out there, and he's pleading with these kids. He's like, y'all done burned down my business, and, I grew up in the ghetto like you did, and I worked hard to try to make this business, and y'all come and burned it down. You know what I mean? And how in the world can you in a million years think it's okay to burn down the businesses of your fellow Americans? They're your people. They live in your neighborhoods. You went and bought liquor from the guy at the liquor store 2 weeks ago, and then to go and burn his business down. And it ain't owned by a white guy. It ain't owned by the cop that killed Mr. Floyd. It's owned by your fellow people in your community. And that's what gets me so much is, why is the answer to commit violence against your own people in your own communities, the communities that you should be protecting? That's what gets me about it. And it's weird,
Yeah. Well, some of the looting and stuff that's been going on, folks are just stopping in the middle of the street, just driving by, and taking the opportunistic moment to go inside and grab stacks of Nikes. Grab piles of clothes. I mean, go into the jewelry store and just walk out with a whole handful of jewelry. I mean, what is that going to ultimately do for you? Stacks of TVs. All right, if people are really, if people are really down on their luck because of like coronavirus and everything else, then why aren't they like looting the grocery stores? I mean, it doesn't paint the picture of, okay, these are desperate people. That's what the media would have you believe. Oh, these are desperate people. They're just looking for an outlet. No, they're just looking for an opportune time to go and rob something, when everybody else is doing it, and they're probably not going to get in trouble for it. But that's another thing too, okay? But, if people are really down on the luck, then go get the essentials, the things that you need, okay?
Well, during the Rodney King riots.
Not saying it's okay, but
during the Rodney King riots, there were people that were observed leaving grocery stores with baby diapers and formula. Okay. That. Here's the thing. There's a lot
wrong no matter which way you look at it, but it's just stacks of TVs or essentials for life. I mean,
yeah. So, okay, another aspect of it. I've seen a lot of people on social media. I'm not going to name specific names because I'm friends with some of these people. I don't want to throw them under the bus too hard or anything, but there's some people that have made statements within our community, and they're like, "Oh, well, is someone's life really worth a TV?" And they're referring to business owners using force to protect their place of business against looters and rioters and things like that. Oh, well, how dare you shoot someone over a TV? Well, look, here's the thing.
It's not just a TV. There's a bigger picture.
It's the principle of it, okay? That's someone's livelihood, right? You can't take someone's livelihood away. You know what I mean? If you were in your home minding your own business and someone kicked in your front door and said, "Give me everything you got," well, any person worth their salt would defend their property in their home. That's just the bottom line. And stealing someone's livelihood, you can't have livelihood without life, right? So you're literally trying to take their life away fiscally, and you're taking away their business, you're taking away the way they feed their family. And in many states, theft of something over $500, do not pass go, do not collect $200. That's felony, right? Felony theft over $500. Yeah. So if you own a giant department store and someone slung a huge or any store, and someone slung a brick through the wall and did $2,000 worth of damage, well, they've already committed a felony right there because they have done $2,000 worth of damage to your property. I mean, it's a scary situation. I mean, how do you deal with that? Because many of us, nobody wants to hurt anybody. no one wants to set out to destroy someone's, life, right? You don't want to hurt anybody, but at the same time, it's like that's your livelihood, and they're taking that from you. So business owners should protect their businesses. I mean, that's what any person would do. If someone's trying to take away the very way that you exist as a person and the way you take care of your family, and you should protect that. I mean, look at the roof Koreans.
Yep.
So this shirt actually has a bit of a story to it. All right, and this is in reference to the 92 LA riots, and these are what we call the roof Koreans. And these Korean grocery store owners armed themselves, got up on top of the grocery store, and they protected their store from looters. And their store and inventory was spared from looters.
You think about, it's just a store, it's just stuff. Well, no, it's someone's life. I mean, like, you look at, like, Moss, for example. I mean, just for an example, that is a family business that's been there for 40-plus years, And that is their life. That is the Moss family's livelihood. And if somebody was just to go in there and just commit arson and burn the entire place down, well, yeah, I mean, insurance would probably cover most everything, but you're still burning down someone's life and attacking someone's life in a figurative sense.
It makes me angry about all of the memorials and stuff too. Like when I saw the story, like them vandalizing World War II memorials and stuff, that broke my heart, man. Yep. Like that's unacceptable. The generation that gave so much for our world, the world we live in today that we know and what it exists as, we owe to those veterans.
Yep.
And you dishonor their memory by destroying monuments? Come on. That's just below human decency to do that. You got to be a real twisted bastard to do that to somebody.
One thing too about the media coverage of the rioters and such burning down communities, burning down their own communities. Well, is it really the peaceful protesters who are lawfully protesting the death of George Floyd, or are they out-of-state actors committing these crimes against a community that is not theirs and they don't have to go home to? So there's a lot more to look at.
They're trying to stir the pot.
They are, and it's always the economy's down. We've had coronavirus and all this bull crap, the lockdowns, all the stress, millions of people out of work, and you've got this just stacked on there. It's like 2020 is turning out to be a real turd, isn't it?
It's turned out to be a turd of a year, that's for sure.
You've got people down on the luck, and you got all this stuff going on, further dividing the country. I mean, we're working towards unifying the country, okay? Like, you look at the way that we portray the Second Amendment. I mean, the Second Amendment is for everyone, Liberty is for everyone. There's not one sect of people that should have power over someone else. I mean, that is pretty much the textbook definition of racism, and that word gets thrown out there a whole lot these days, and people really don't understand the true meaning. Hitler was a racist. He believed that his race was superior to other races. That is racism. Everyone is a little bit prejudiced. I admit, I'm prejudiced. I'm prejudiced against idiots and stupid people, criminals, people that would do my family harm. It doesn't matter what color you are. I am probably prejudiced against you in some way or another. I can honestly admit that. Everyone in this world is somewhat prejudiced. But are they racist? Likely not. But that term gets thrown around a lot, and it just seeks to further divide, relations in this country between all the races that live here. And the media cherry picks what they decide to show, to the masses. So you really have to dig deep to find the good that is really going on with this whole situation. But, like Eric said earlier, I'm not for the militarization of the police. I'm not for National Guard and military walking down the streets, locking everybody in their house, to quell this whole thing. I am for this, ceasing pretty quickly and getting these out-of-state actors back to their homes or put in jail or whatever the case is. And, you see this crap about, like these GoFundMe campaigns to get protesters out of jail. They're not talking about getting protesters out of the jail because the protesters aren't in the jail. The people that are in the jail are the arsonists, the looters, the criminals. So to say that, oh, well, we're raising money to get protesters out of prison. Like, that's bullcrap, you know?
And there's a lot of information that gets cherry-picked as well, in that there's some stuff floating around where there's groups of people in Minneapolis, all right, cleaning up, picking up trash, cleaning up the streets,
You don't see
going
about
behind these dirt wads and doing the right thing and coming together as a community. And they're white, black, Asian, all different people just coming together and doing the right thing, cleaning up. You don't hear the media talk about that. The media only talks about the things that they want to use to chalk up fear and drive an agenda, and that's what makes the situation so scary.
Yeah.
I mean, so we'll just end this video by saying that, you know, we hope, and this is the most important takeaway from this video for me personally, just as a person talking to you guys personally, my level. I hope that Mr. Floyd's family finds some peace and justice in this situation. I don't think anybody in their right mind in a million years would think that it's okay to put your knee on someone's neck for 9 minutes, okay? What he did was heinous, and I hope that justice will prevail, and I hope that people's hearts will be eased by this situation. And I will say this, I'll say this with all humility right here, that I care very much about my country, and I care very much about everybody in it, white, black, Mexican, Asian, I don't care who you are. If you are in this country and you love this country and you live here and you're here with me, we're all in this together. Okay, this ain't a black or white thing. This is about being a good American. All right, and everybody needs to ask themselves if they want to be Americans, because that's the thing. America is a difficult concept for some people. They may not be able to understand the concept of true brotherhood and liberty, but we are free people, and all men are created equal. Okay. We're all here together. We all have a life to live. And the thing is, you got the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you don't pursue that happiness, and if you don't have the means to protect that and to pursue that, then what are you? Are you really living? Right? But that's what it means to live as an American, is to march your own path and be your own person and, you know, do good by the people around you. You know, are we perfect place? Heck no, we're not. Do we argue? Heck yeah, we do. Are there still issues between certain groups of people? Of course there are. But it doesn't mean that everybody can't be happy and free and live with dignity and protect their communities. And I think that's the most important takeaway from this whole thing, is we've got to be looking for ways to get this together as people, as a country. Like, do we want to be a country, a unified country with a unified culture and a unified reasoning and logic, and be a country and culture of logic? Or do we want to just be warring factions? Because that's what the government, sometimes you think the government in terms of like the two-party system and all this, and the militarization of the police, you know, it's kind of hard to think that that's not what they want, is for there to be these warring factions so they can swoop in and have control much easier when you have people divided. I'm not interested in warring factions. I'm interested in people having the tools necessary to protect themselves and to be independent thinkers and to just make decisions based on what's good for their families and their communities, and to just have a natural will to want to do right by each other. I don't really think that it's that hard, you know, to deal with. Like, you are your brother's keeper, right? Well, then be your brother's keeper. Does it matter who that person is, white, black, whatever culture they are, whatever race or religion or whatever? No, you're your brother's keeper. Well, I'm telling you, you're not honoring Mr. Floyd by burning down people's businesses. That's not being your brother's keeper, okay? I just feel like that's the most, you know, pragmatic way to approach this thing, is just give a crap about other people for a little while, you know?
Yep.
You might find yourself a little bit enlightened.
Possibly, you know, at least maybe a little bit smarter than you were when you came out of it, or when you started. But so the last thing I want to just mention is, when stuff like this goes on and all the media coverage is focused on one particular topic, and everything is scripted too. You know, you look at different networks and you hear the same script over and over and over again constantly. Don't believe me? Go and research it for yourself, and you'll find out. But let me ask you.
Look at what they're not talking about, not what they are.
That's exactly the point I want to make. So they're not talking about Obamagate right now. They're not talking about Michael Flynn anymore. They're not talking about the legitimate sexual assault allegations against Joe Biden.
They're not talking about Clinton's emails and all of that bullcrap going on.
They're not talking. They're just not talking about these things. The really true important news that is out there, and the insults to the American people, there are not being discussed right now.
Well, they can use all this information tracking to find out who has coronavirus, but they can't use that same technology to figure out what's going on with this pedophile cult with Epstein. Come on.
Think
we're stupid or something?
Too many of the powers that be are involved in that, and they don't want to be unmasked, so to speak.
Keep your eyes open and look at the big picture is all we're trying to say. Yep. Guys, have a great day, and I know it's tough. Some of you are in these affected areas, and I really feel for y'all. You know, make sure you have a gun, protect yourself, be smart about it, treat people like you want to be treated. You are your brother's keeper. Be smart about it. Don't make a dumb decision. Don't do something stupid. You know, just try to take care of the people around you. Have a calm head. Think before you do something. That's important. Before you throw that brick through the freaking window, ask yourself, is that really something that is going to better the world around me? Is that really something that's going to better me as a person? Is that really going to help you as a person? Is it going to help the people around you? Probably not. Okay. Guys, have a great day. We appreciate it. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.